I found a bridge. I go to a small park in my hometown of Virginia. Been going since I was a kid. It has baseball fields and a stream. I played baseball there when I was young. It used to have an old pond for swimming. I remember an old diving board and murky-looking water that looked like it was from a horror movie. It was all taken out over 25 years ago. It's now a parking lot with a pond to fish in. I decided to go one day and take a walk on the trail by the pond. As I made the loop around to the part where there were a lot of trees, I noticed a crude-made bridge, barely visible back off the trail. I never noticed it before and was curious why it was there, wondering who built it. The bridge was made of tree limbs and trunks, kind of strange, but it was sturdy, so I decided to cross it. It was about 5 feet wide and 25 or 30 feet long. Step by step, I crossed. The bridge creaked and moaned, but it would hold. When I reached the center of the bridge, everything stopped. The creek, the birds, the sights and sounds. I was confused, yet I crossed. When I reached the other side, I knew something was different. The air, the sounds, everything. I reached the end of the dirt path and things did change. The park that I had known as a child was gone. One of the ball fields was gone. It looked like it did back when I was young. I couldn't believe it. I raced home and everything was different. Cars, people, their clothes. I arrived at my home and I noticed my father's car in the yard. His Fifth Avenue Chrysler, his '79 Ram Charger. But how could it be? How could that be? Were they back? I rushed inside to see my mom cooking in the kitchen. "Hello," she said, in her thick German accent. I hugged her tight. She said, "Okay, what do you want?" I couldn't speak. She said, "Okay then. Go on, set the table for dinner. I made your favorite, schnitzel." Before I could, I peeked into the living room and saw my old man, watching his evening news. I just stared at him. He looked at me and said, "What?" I said, "Oh, nothing." He said, "Okay then." I just said, "Glad to see you." He said, "What?" "You just saw him today at work." We worked together at my dad's shop. He was a coin dealer. Many an hour were spent as a kid going through thousands and thousands of wheat pennies. I hated it as a kid, but would give anything to get to do that one more time. I said, yeah, I know." And he just gave me a strange look. When I went back to the kitchen, I think I almost fainted. I looked at the old door to the kitchen and the calendar read 1990, July 10th. I had gone back in time somehow. But how? Was it the bridge? I sat at dinner and just stared at my parents. You see, my dad had been dead almost 20 years. My mother too. But I had another life. My life. Back in 2020. I thought to myself, how is this going to work? After reminiscing for a while and getting over my astonishment, I went to my old room. Talk about memories. My old record player. Beatle records stacked high. Posters. My old clothes and my vintage Psycho Stick skateboard. Man, now that's some nostalgia. I left that night and went back to the park, to the bridge, and it was there, but pieces of it were missing. Strange, but I crossed back over and I went forward to 2020. For days, weeks, I went back and forth. Each time a piece of the bridge would disappear. I tried to replace the pieces, but each time I came back, the pieces would be gone. It seemed like that was the cost of my excursion. At this point, there wasn't much left of the bridge. I had maybe 2 trips left that I could make before the inevitable. Did I want to stay back in 1990 as my teen self? Or go back to my life now? I made 2 more trips and the bridge was almost gone. I sat at the dinner table and made my decision. I looked at my parents and told them, "You know, I love you, right?" They looked at me and said, "Okay, what did you break?" Jokingly, of course. I made my way to my room to get one last look. I pet my 2 dogs, Rex and Baron, for the last time and said my goodbyes. I hugged my mom and dad and said I'd be back after I run a few errands. I knew that was the last time I'd see them. I made my way to the bridge and it was in bad shape. I crossed and it creaked and moaned again as it did, like the first time I crossed. I pushed forward and the bridge began to collapse. I ran as fast as I could and jumped, just as the last log under my foot broke. I had barely made it. I was back in 2020. I looked back at the bridge and it was gone. Nothing of it remained. It was like it never existed. But I had those memories, Mom, Dad, my dogs. I don't know what I stumbled into, but I was glad that I did. There is no greater sorrow than to recall a happy time. It's sorrowful because even though the times we remember are happy, we can't physically go back to them.